All right, so hi everyone. So we are going to have a session today on the best practices ensuring the 3B compliance. So we all understand that there was a recent changes by the government portal, and this was especially in relation to Table 4 of GSTR-3B. And after this changes, it's really very important that how we are even filing our GSTR-3B, because we need to show different figures in GSTR-3B. So it becomes important that the values which we are showing, is it actually matching with 2B, and if it is not matching, why it is not matching. The way we show the ineligible ITC is also very important. So we are going to discuss about all of this thing in today's session. So here, if we just talk about, there were major changes in relation to ITC, there were some changes in relation to e-commerce transaction, and there were some changes in relation to the outward supply. So first, we will be focusing on the ITC because that's like the most important change, and there's still a lot of confusion which is in everyone's mind that how exactly we have to populate the figure when it comes to GSTR-3B table number 4. So let's discuss about that. So if I just talk about the eligible ITC, which is table number 4, right? So if we just look upfront there is something called 4A, which is like a kind of ITC available. Then we have something called 4B, which is ITC reversed. And then we have 4C, which is the net ITC. And then we have 4D, which earlier used to talk about the ineligible ITC, but now it is more of a other details, right? So upfront, if we look into it, 4A is nothing but just talk about the ITC available, which you are going to claim. Then 4B is a reversal part, and then we have a 4C, which is a net ITC, which actually goes and sits in our electronic credit ledger, right? So this is how this is shown when it comes to GSTR-3B. Now, when we talk about what are the exact changes, what is now changed? Is there a major change or is a very small change? So when we look into upfront, right, there is some just text changes. If we look into 4B1, 4B1 earlier it used to say that there is an ITC reversal as per 4243 of CGST rule. Now there they have added as per 38, which is as per section 38, and also they have added as per section 17 subsection 5 of CGST Act. When we look into 4D, earlier they used to say it as an ineligible ITC, now they are just saying it as an other detail. They have removed this as per 17.5 from there, and instead they have introduced some two more field, which is 4D1, which is ITC reclaim, which was reversed under 4B2 in earlier tax period, and they have also introduced something called ineligible ITC under section 16 subsection 4 and ITC restricted due to POS provision. All right, this is just a text change. Now question comes in, what is the change for us? What exactly we have to look into? Do we have to even do anything about it, or it is like just like a normal transition to be shown here and there? So if you ask me, these are the actual a major change which have been brought by the GSTN. What exactly they are trying to do is they are trying that whatever the ITC which is populating in your GSTR-2B should come in table number 4A5. That is what they are trying to do. But we also understand that there can be a cases where that will never match. Why that will not match, we will actually discuss about it. So let me give you a few examples and then you tell me, because this change was there from August 2022. We also filed GSTR-3B before that. We are actually filing this return from August 2022 as per this new format too. So you only tell me like how exactly you're doing or how exactly you're looking into this transactions. So let me give you one simple example. Let's assume you have some purchases which you have made, right? This is in respect of the immovable property. So what happened? There was an event in, let's say, in Delhi. You are registered in the state of Karnataka, and when you are registered in the state of Karnataka, you visited Delhi, and there to an hotelier, that person asked, okay, give me your GSTN number, and you shared your Karnataka GSTN with them. When you shared Karnataka GSTN with them and you don't have any registration in the state of Delhi, you were there only for some business trip. So there, that hotelier, that person would have raised an invoice to you. In that particular invoice, they would have mentioned customer GSTN as your Karnataka GSTN. The place of supply they would have mentioned as Delhi. The reason why they would have mentioned as Delhi, because we know in case of the place of provision, place of supply provision in respect of the immobile property, the place of supply is the state where that property is located. And since that property was in Delhi, so that person has shown place of supply as Delhi, right? And we know that when it comes to whether we have to charge IGST or CGST, HGST, it all depends on the supply state and the place of supply. And since the supply is also located in the state of Delhi, so that person would have charged CGST and SGST, right? This is what would had happened. This is a transition. So you receive this invoice. Now my question to all of you, first thing, are you allowed to claim the ITC on this transaction or not? So you can just reply on the chat box, are you allowed to claim the ITC on this transaction or not? I could see answer from Manoj. Manoj says no, Shweta says no, Krishna says no, Ankur says no. All right, Ganesh says not allowed. Vishal says no. Sushmita says no. Hiran says, Amit says no. Ravin says no. So everyone is saying no. And that's a correct answer too, right? Why? Why it is not allowed? So if we just go with the section 16, right? Section 16 clearly mentioned, and even after the recent changes, the notification, it has been clarified too. Whatever the ITC is as a not available in your GSTR-2B will never become the available ITC while you're filing your GSTR-3B. So when you look into your GSTR-2B, whenever there is a mismatch between the place of supply and your state, in this particular example, your state was in the state of Karnataka and the place of supply mentioned by your supplier was Delhi, there is a mismatch between these two, right? Whenever there is a mismatch between these two, in that case, when you even download your GSTR-2B, you would see that this is categorized as ITC not available as per your GSTR-2B. Right? So this is considered as an ITC not available. So here we know that as per section 16, we can claim ITC only out of the transaction which is coming in your GSTR-2B as ITC available. Right? So whenever I'm talking about the B2B transaction which is purchased from the registered supplier, in that case, I can claim ITC only when it is appearing in your 2B as an ITC available. Obviously, there are other conditions too. We always have to fulfill other condition. We will even talk about that condition, but this is the first main example which I just have discussed with you. Now, let me ask you another question. As everyone of you said, right, that this is an ITC which is not even available. You cannot claim ITC. Before August 2022, whether you show this kind of an ITC, this tax amount, whatever have been charged by the supplier, whether you even show this transaction in table number 4 of GSTR-3B before this new changes, and if you show, where exactly you show this particular information in your GSTR-3B. So you can just reply on the chat box. So my question was whether you even show this or you don't show it, and even if you show it, where exactly you used to show this information. So I could see answer from Abhinav. Abhinav says old method we used to ignore it. Ankur says we used to show in 4D2. Shweta says we are not showing it. All right. So if you ask me, right, practically, most of us used to ignore this transaction. Most of us were not even looking into this transaction. We used to ignore. Even if some of us used to show this transaction, we used to show this transaction either under 4D1 or under 4D2. That is how we used to show this transaction. So if in general you ask me, this is some ITC we used to directly show under the 4D2 or we used to ignore this, right? But now the government is saying clearly that in respect of, because of this place of supply thing, right? Whenever there is a difference in the place of supply and you're not allowed to claim ITC, and it is even considered as ITC not available as per your GSTR-2B, you should directly show this information under 4D2. So now they have clearly mentioned that if there is any ineligible ITC under section 16(4) and ITC restricted due to POS provision. So right now focus on the ITC which is restricted due to POS provision. So whenever there is an ITC which has been restricted because of the place of supply provision, then that particular ITC we have to show under 4D2. So this is only for the declaration purpose. We are not adding this. We are not subtracting this. This is not going in electronic credit ledger. Just for the information purpose, there is some ITC which is not available as per 2B. You have to just show that information under table number 4D2 as per the new changes. So this is the first important change, that this ITC we have to show it over there. Now let me give you another example. I understand about the place of supply. What is this under section 16(4)? What exactly they are even referring to? So here they are saying that if there was some supply, right? There was a supply which was made by the supplier. Let's assume that supplier, that person was non-compliant at all. He was not complying at all. He sold something to you in the month of March. So in the month of March 2022, that person has sold something to you, but that person has not filed his GSTR-1. When that person has not filed his GSTR-1, this particular document would never be showing or appearing in your GSTR-2B, right? So you were allowed to claim ITC, but since that supplier has not filed his GSTR-1, he has not uploaded this invoice, this particular document was not even appearing in your GSTR-2B. So you have not claimed the ITC in the month of March, and let's assume this supplier has not filed his return till 30th of November, right? So when this person has not even filed it, you have also not claimed the ITC because it was not appearing in your GSTR-2B. Now on 1st December, this person have actually filed his GSTR-1 with this particular document. So when he has filed his first question is whether the government will stop him to file his GSTR-1. The answer is obviously no. Government needs their revenue, so they will not stop him to file their GSTR-1 for the month of March. That will be allowed. That person can still file his GSTR-1 for the month of March on 1st December. So when this person can file his GSTR-1 for the month of March on 1st December, this invoice will also get populated in your GSTR-2B for the month of December, which means when you download your GSTR-2B on 14th of January, you will be able to see this particular invoice. But the next question is, are you now allowed to claim the ITC pertaining to FY 21-22 in the month of January while you're filing your GST return for the month of December? So you can just answer on the chat box. Are you allowed to claim that ITC for FY 21-22 in the month of January when you're filing the return for the month of December? So I could see answer from Krishna says no, Ankit says no, Ankur says no, Deepa says no, Vishal says no, Abhinav says no, Surendra, Vinara, everyone is saying no. And which is actually a right answer. So we all understand that there is a limit to claim an ITC. And the limit to claim ITC is the next year till 30th of November, right? I can claim any ITC. So if I have to claim any ITC relevant for FY 21-22, the maximum time period when I can claim the ITC is till 30th November, which means till October return. So till October return, and which is also filed by 30th of November, that's the timeline till when I can actually claim any ITC which is relevant to my previous year, right? That is what exactly is the timeline. So for this particular case, I can't even claim ITC. So department itself, the GSTN portal itself automatically show this ITC not available in your GSTR-2B. So whenever you look into your GSTR-2B, you will see that this particular invoice will be coming under the ITC not available. And you again have to directly report this information under table number 4D2. Right? So this is because of the time bar thing when you're not able to claim ITC, and you have to directly show this information under 4D2. So this was the second important thing which you have to make sure while you're filing your GSTR-3B. So whenever there is a difference, you are not able to claim ITC because of the place of supply provision or because of the time bar thing, that information has to be shown in table number 4D2. Right? So this was first part. Now let me ask you another important part. Assume your supplier is a compliant supplier, and I'm assuming you are not into a business of selling the motor vehicle or maybe a passenger transport service and all. You have purchased a motor vehicle, right? You have purchased a motor vehicle, and I'm assuming you are not falling in that conditions where you can claim ITC. So that particular purchase of that motor vehicle is assuming that is coming under our section 17 subsection 5, which is a block credit, and I'm not allowed to claim the ITC. Right? We know that there is a section 17.5 list where, let's say, if I have purchased some foods and beverages or maybe a motor vehicle and all, unless obviously there is exception to that too, but I am not allowed to claim that ITC as per section number 17 subsection number 5. Now when I am not allowed to claim that ITC as per section 17 subsection number 5, I am giving you another very simple example. Let's say your supplier, you had a supplier, you purchased this motor vehicle from that supplier, and the supplier was also compliant. Let's say you purchased this in the month of August. When you purchase this particular, you purchase this motor vehicle in the month of August, supplier also filed that in the month of August. And when you just downloaded your GST-2B for the month of August, which will be generated in the next month, which is September. So on 14th September, when you downloaded your GSTR-2B for the month of August, you will be able to see this invoice, right? Obviously, you will be able to see this invoice. Now, my first question to all of you, will that be categorized as ITC available or ITC not available when you download your GSTR-2B? So you purchased motor vehicle, it is not coming into that all exceptions, assuming this is a block credit for you because you're not into that nature of business. My question to all of you is that when you download your GST2B on 14th September for the month of August 2022, whether they will be coming under ITC available or ITC not available. I could see answer from Ankur. Ankur says available, Shweta says available, Abhinav says available, Motishi says available, Irul says available, Mohnahu says available. Everyone is saying it's under ITC available. And obviously it will come under ITC available. How? Because government will never be able to see from the transaction that this particular ITC is either a eligible ITC or not eligible ITC, right? Government will never tell you it is eligible or ineligible ITC. So government, when you download your GSTR-2B, you will always be seeing this particular ITC under the ITC available. So now another question for all of you is, what about showing this transaction before this August changes? How exactly you were actually showing this transaction while you were filing your GSTR-3B? So you had this block credit. Now my question was, when you have purchased something, let's say the car was for 1 lakh rupees, assuming 18,000 was GST. My question is, when you have to show this 18,000, which is an ineligible ITC, how exactly you were showing this in your GSTR-3B before August 2022? I could see the answer from Ankur. Ankur says 4D1, Abhinav says ignored, Manu says 4D1, Shweta says ignored, Arul says ignored, Karthik says 4D1, Amish says 4D1. All right, and actually this is the right answer too. So if you ask me today, right, practically before this August 2022, before this changes, the new changes, most of the time whenever we were recording this transaction in our books of account, we used to directly expense it out. Right? If I purchase something, I will directly expense it out. I will never book anything as an input GST. And since I was expensing it out, most of the time I'm not even showing this transaction. So we were not even showing this transaction under 4D1, but there were some people who were even showing this. And if they were showing this, was showing under 4D1. That is how they used to show it. But now there is a major change over there. Here what government is saying that, see, this is an ITC which is coming in your GSTR-2B as an ITC available ITC. So you should first show this under 4A5. So if there is an ITC which is coming as an ITC available as per your GSTR-2B, you show first under 4A5. Now after showing under 4A5, we understand that you are not allowed to claim that ITC. Then you reverse the entire ITC under 4B1, which is a permanent reversal. So for this particular transaction, they are trying to match the ITC as per your 2B and the ITC you are claiming in your GSTR-3B, and they clearly says first show under 4A5 and do the reversal under 4B1, so that when you look as a net impact under 4C, it will always be zero. So you're not claiming any ITC, nothing is going in your electronic credit ledger, but for the purpose of showing this information in your GSTR-2B, sorry, GSTR-3B, first you have to add under 4A5, then you have to do a reversal under 4B1, and under 4C, that figure, the value will be zero, right? So this is the second important change, because today, if you ask me, we used to most of the time expense it out. We were not even looking into whether this transaction is coming in 2B or not, but now we actually have to look into this transaction if it is coming in 2B or not, and if it is coming in your GSTR-2B, you have to first add under 4A5 and then also reverse under 4B1. This is what we have to do now. Let me now ask you another important question. Here we said the supplier was a very compliant supplier and this was an ineligible ITC which I have purchased. Now in this case we said, okay, because we have to match this with our GSTR-2B, so we were adding under 4A5 and then we were also doing a reversal under 4B1, which is a permanent reversal. So net we were not claiming ITC, but in this way our 2B was actually matching. The ITC as per 2B was actually matching as per the ITC we are showing in 4A5. Obviously, there are other reasons when it will not match. I will talk about that transitions too. But here, assuming now it is matching, let me ask you a another important question. Right? Assuming this supplier was not compliant, You had purchased something from your supplier. Same thing, motor vehicle. When you purchased motor vehicle from your supplier, this supplier was not compliant at all. This was an ineligible ITC which is coming in your books of accounts when you have even recorded this transaction. Now, my question is, if this transaction was not appearing in your GSTR-2B, do you have to first add under 4A5 and do a reversal under 4B1 or not? You have purchased, you have even received the goods and services, everything was proper, but this supplier was not compliant. The supplier has not filed his GSTR1. You were not able to see this invoice in your GSTR-2B. Now, question is whether you have to even report this transaction in your GSTR-3B or not. So, I could see answers from Abhinav. Abhinav says no, Ankur says no, Ram says no, Shravan says no, Amit says no, Nirav says no, Motishi says no need to report in 3B, Deepa says so. So, everyone is saying no, and which is the correct answer too. So this transaction, when it was not even appearing in 2B, we don't even have to show this transaction in our GST-3B because our ultimate goal is that whatever is coming in 4A5 is actually matching with whatever the ITC which is appearing in our GST-2B. So that's our ultimate goal. So here, if the transaction itself was not coming in R2B, will not be even showing under 4A5. So this is the second important, like I would say, other than the POS and the time bar thing, this is the another very important change which is there or done by the government portal, and how we actually show the ITC in our GSTR-3B. Now, let me give you one another important, or I would say useful example. Think about, you had purchased something from a supplier and supplier is compliant too. Let's say again you have purchased something in the month of August, and when you purchase something in the month of August, the supplier also filed his GSTR1 in the same month, let's say in the month of August itself. And when you see and when you download your GSTR-2B for the month of August, which will always be generated on the next month 14th, which is 14th September, when you actually download your GSTR-2B, you are also able to see this invoice, right? But you have not received these goods till now, which means in the month of August, you have not received these goods, and you have also not recorded this transaction in your books of account because you have not received the goods. My question to all of you is, while you are filing your GSTR-3B, right? While you are filing your GSTR-3B for the month of August, whether you will be taking ITC on this transaction or not. Are you eligible to claim ITC or not? Ankur says no, we are not eligible to claim. Shweta says no, Ami says no, Anachalan says no, Deepa says no, Manji says no, Abhinav says no. So everyone is saying no, we are not eligible to claim ITC, and which is the right answer, because we all understand that one of the another condition as per section 16 is that you should also have received the goods and the services in order to claim the ITC. So I cannot claim ITC if I have not received the goods and the services, right? So that's the right thing. Now, my question is, the another question is, before this August 2022 changes, if you have to show this information in your GSTR-3B, whether, first question is whether you even show this transaction or not in the month of August. So right now I'm talking about the month of August when you are able to see this ITC in your GSTR-2B, but you are not allowed to claim the ITC because you have not received the goods and the services. So my question is, while you are filing the return, assuming this new changes was not even there, whether you even show this ITC in your GSTR-3B or not, as per the old method. Ankur says no, Abhinav says no, Karthik says no, Ankit says ignore it, Vishal says no, Deepa says ignored, Vinay says no. All right, so everyone is saying no, and which is again the right answer. So that time we used to ignore it. We are filing for the return for the month of August, and if we see certain ITC coming in 2B, but I was not allowed to claim the ITC as I have not received the goods and the services, I used to even ignore that transaction. I never used to show that ITC in our GSTR-3B at all. But now my next question to all of you is, what about reflecting or showing or reporting this transition in our GSTR-3B after this new changes? Do we have to now show this particular ITC in our GSTR-3B while I am filing the GSTR-3B for the month of August? So I'm assuming in 2B I could see this particular ITC in my August return period, but in the PR I have not recorded this transaction. Whether I have to report this transaction in our GSTR-3B or not, and if I have to record, how exactly this transaction has to be reported in GSTR-3B. I could see answer from Amit, Aditya, Ram. Everyone is saying yes, we have to report this transaction. And Abhinav says 4A5, 4B2. Okay. Manji says yes. Then Deepa says temporary reversal. Ankur says reverse in 4B2. Gopi says yes. Yogesh says yes. And which is the right answer again. So yes, we have to report this transition. How exactly we are going to show? Under the 4A5, we will first show this ITC amount, because ultimately we have to match this particular ITC with what is coming in your 2B. Right? So in 2B, this particular amount was there. So we are also going to show this transition under the 4A5. And then we have to do a temporary reversal. Because I may claim this ITC in the future months, so I will do a temporary reversal, and the temporary reversal have to be done under table 4B2. So first we'll show under 4A5, and then we'll do a temporary reversal under 4B2. So this is how we have to even show this transition while we are filing our GSTR-3B for the month of August. So in this way, again, whatever the ITC was coming in 2B, and I'm assuming, let's say there was only single transaction, this will again match with whatever is coming in under 4A5 of what we actually filed in GSTR-3B. Now let me ask you another question. So this we have filed for the month of August. Let's say in the month of September, you have actually received this particular purchase invoice. You have even recorded this transaction in your books of accounts, and now you are allowed to claim the ITC, because ultimately this was always there in your GST-2B of the previous month, right? So supplier has already filed it, you have also received the goods and services, and you have also fulfilled all other conditions which was required, and it is also not a block credit. Now in the month of September, this was allowed, right? So you are eligible to claim the ITC. Now my question is, where exactly this transaction has to be reported in your GSTR-3B as per the new changes? For old changes, because we have never reported it, so I will even, so if we talk about the old changes, we know now if I'm claiming, I used to directly show under 4A5, right? In the month of September, if I'm going with that old changes, I used to directly show under the 4A5. That is how we used to report it earlier. Now as per the new changes, what exactly we have to do? So I could see Manji says show under 4A5. You just add it. Anku says 4A5 4D1. Yogesh says 4A5 4D1. Ami says 4A5. Manoj says show in 4A5. All right. So most of us are saying add in 4A5. And which is again the right answer. We have to add in 4A5. Right? Because obviously if I don't add it over there, this will never go and sit in my electronic credit ledger at all. Right? I have to add it. I have to claim in any way. So 4A5, I'm going to add it. There is no problem there. But now if you just see, if I look into my September 2B, this ITC was never there. In the month of September, this ITC was never there in my GST-2B. This was in my previous month. So now there would be a mismatch between what is coming in my 2B and what I'm showing in 4A5. Right? So for that, what government is saying that you show under the 4A5 and at the same time show the same amount under 4D1. Right? So when you show the same amount under 4A5 and the 4D1, so ultimately what I'm saying that this was an ITC which was reversed in the earlier year and now it has been claimed. So I am looking into this. So ultimately my equation over here becomes that the ITC which you're claiming in your 4A5 section is equal to the ITC which is appearing in your GSTR-2B plus the ITC which is there in 4D1. So this becomes our new equation which should always match, and if it is not matching, the department will definitely going to issue you the notices over here. Right? So what we are doing, we are showing in 4A5 and at the same time we are also showing this information under the 4D1. So we have to keep a track of the documents against which ITC was reversed in the previous month, and now you're going to claim that, and if you are claiming it, show under the 4A5 and also at the same time show under the 4D1. So 4D1 is just for the informational purpose, but actual ITC is claimed in 4A5. Right? So this was about that ITC which you have claimed, and this was the transition. This is how we have to show in the next month. But now my again simple question. We talked about few examples over here, and I talked about certain cases where the way we show the ITC transition in table number 4 of GSTR-3B and how exactly it has been changed. My question is whether still the ITC which is coming in my 2B will always match with whatever the ITC I'm showing in 4A5, and like obviously I'm also adding, let's say 4D1. So if we forget about that, it will always match. I could see Abhinav says it will not match. Right, what about others? Whether still my ITC which is coming in the 4A5 plus the ITC which is appearing in 2B plus 4D1 will always match or not? Ram says no, it will not match. Amish says it will not match. Manoj says not match. Ankur says not match. Yeah, so if you ask me, it will not match. Why it will not match? Let's talk about few examples, right? See, one major example is a transition impact. When I'm saying there is a transition impact, think about there was some ITC which was appearing in your GSTR-2B for the month of March. Let's say for March 2022, there was certain ITC which was appearing in your 2B. But you had not claimed ITC because either you missed it, or maybe there can be a cases that that time you were not allowed to claim ITC and now you have received this invoice. And we all know that for FY 21-22, we can always claim the ITC till October return period, right? So now when I'm filing my GSTR-3B for the month of October 2022, can I claim that ITC which is pertaining to my FY 21-22 for appearing in 2B? The answer will be yes, I can always do that. I can always claim that ITC. And if I claim that ITC, where exactly I'm going to show that ITC? I will be showing that particular ITC under 4A5, right? So I can claim that ITC, I'm going to show that ITC in 4A5. So now the thing is, when I look into, let's say I'm filing this return for the month of October and I have claimed any ITC which was relevant for FY 21-22, I claimed in the month of October. In October 2B, this ITC would never be reflected. True. So in 4A5, even if I have claimed, let's say there was an ITC of 1 lakh which I have claimed, whether that ITC is appearing in R2B, the answer is no. Why? Because that ITC was there in the month of March. So here you would say, okay, now show under 41 also, then it will match, the equation will match. But then you will again come up with a question that, hey, I have never reversed this ITC. So if we look into the 41, what exactly it is saying that this is an ITC which is reclaimed, which was reversed under 4B2 in the earlier tax period. But I have never reversed this ITC, right? So there was ITC appearing in 2B, but I never reversed that ITC. So why would I even show that ITC in 41? And ideally, you should not even show in 41 because you have never reversed it. So to overcome this problem, right? So now you will say, okay, for FY 21-22, this particular problem will always be there, right? Till my October return period. And even if I forgot about, let's say, last year, these changes are there from August 2022. Right? What about my April return period? April 2022. There was some ITC appearing in my 2B and now I'm allowed to claim it. And I can always claim this ITC till my October 2023, like October 2023 return period, right? So I can always go ahead and claim that ITC. So which means this difference will always be there till October 2023 return period. And if that's the case, then if tomorrow department comes with a notice, I have to explain them the difference for all entire 19 months, and which is really going to be a tedious job for me. So here, what exactly we have to do? You should reconcile the entire ITC. So we already have to file the October return period, right? So October return period is the last return period to claim any pending ITC which is related to your FY 21-22. So we all understand that, right? So you do a proper reconciliation for your FY 21-22 with your books of account. And if there is some missed ITC, you just claim that particular ITC in 4A5. You just claim it out, right? Because that's anyhow the last return period and you should claim it. Now, if there is some ITC, now you also run a reconciliation from your April 2022 till your, I would say, October return period. You do a reconciliation between your 2B and the peer. And if there is some ITC which is coming in 2B, but you are not allowed to claim ITC now, right? So you are running a second reconciliation from April 2020 till from April 2022 till your October 2022. And if there is some ITC coming in 2B, but you are not allowed to claim ITC right now, what you do, show that ITC under 4A5. Show that ITC under 4A5 and at the same time also reverse under 4B2. So while you're filing the return for the month of October, and if you have not done already, you'd show that ITC under 4A5 and also show the reversal, which is the temporary reversal under 4B2. So that next time, whenever this ITC comes in, let's say in the month of November, you see that now you actually receive this purchase document. So next time, whenever this ITC comes in, you should show that particular ITC under 4A5 and also show that ITC under 4D1. So this is how we should always show this particular ITC, which is related to the previous year, so that this impact remains there only in 1 month. So this changes, the differences will only be there in the October month. After that, from November month, you will never see such discrepancies, right? So this is the way when your ITC, which is coming in the 2B, will always match with the ITC which you are showing in 4A5. right? So I could see there's another question on Deepa who is asking, should we need to do a permanent reversal of ITC not claim for FY21? No, Deepa, we don't have to do that permanent reversal. So if something has been missed out, you can just leave that and you can just show that while you're filing your GSTR-9. Now the other important part, right? So here we talked about the transition impact, but still my next question to all of you. When we look into GSTR-2B, right, we have the section called ITC available. We also have a section called ITC not available. We said the ITC not available part will go under 4D2 if it matches with my books of account. But there is an ITC available, okay. Can there be a transitions where under that ITC available, you also have certain transition related to reverse charge? Can there be a transition under the ITC available where the reverse charge flag is Y? I could see answer from Ankush. Ankush says yes. Abhinav says yes. What about others? Can there be a transition under the reverse charge which is coming in your 2B under the ITC available section? Amit also says yes. Shrita says yes. Minal says no. Idul says yes. Ganesh says yes. So answer is yes. There can be a transition which is covered under the reverse charge as per your 2B. Right? Now my question is, when it comes to claiming of the ITC for the reverse charge, are you dependent on the supplier to upload that invoice in their GST1, or are you dependent on yourself to show this information in table number 3.1D, which is GSTR-3B, and also at the same time claim that ITC under table number 4A3? So I could see I could see Abhinav says no, dependent on supplier. Shekhar says no. Yourself, Yogesh says no, not dependent on, and which is the right answer. We are not dependent on the supplier to file that in GST1. Rather, we have to pay this liability under table number 3.1D, and the same time we can also claim that ITC for the reverse charge transaction under 4A3. That is how we actually do that, right? So we are not dependent on that supplier, and anyhow we are not even showing this transaction under 4A5. So which means whenever you look into the ITC available section of GSTR-2B, you have to remove the transitions which are covered under reverse charge, right? So whenever you're even matching, we had one equation, right? And when that equation was nothing but whatever the ITC coming in 4A5 should always match with the ITC which is coming in 2B plus the ITC which is shown in 4D1. That was an equation which we are following. But there you remember that whenever you're saying ITC as per 2B, remove that reverse charge transaction. Because reverse charge transactions will never be, it's never dependent on the supply, and we anyhow are going to show that under 4A3. We are not going to even show under the 4A5. So this is the another important point which we should remember while we are even looking into this, right? Now let me ask you another important question. Today, if we just see the ITC available section, right? Under the ITC available section, we do have the invoices, we do have the debit note, we also have the credit notes, right? We have this invoices, debit note, and the credit note. My question is, when the government auto-populate, we all know that the government always auto-populate the GST and auto-populate your GST and 3B summary basis the 2B. In respect of the invoices and the debit note, they always show this information under 4A5. That's correct. Whenever it comes to the credit note, whether they show this as a net figure under the 4A5, which means they directly adjust it from the invoices or the debit note, or they show that credit note under 4B2. So today, when the government auto compute your GST-3B summary from this invoices, debit note, and the credit note, whether they show the net figure of the credit note in the 4A5 or they show the credit note separately under 4B2. So I could see the answer from Minal, Abhinav, okay, Ganesh, everyone says 4B2, 4B2. All right, so everyone is like telling in credit note, we have to show that information under 4B2. Right answer. So which means ultimately you yourself is saying the credit notes are directly shown under 4B2, which means that is never going under 4A5. If it is not going under that 4A5, which means when we again look into our same thing, the same rule, but I was saying that the ITC coming under the 4A5 will always be equal to the ITC which is coming in at 2B plus whatever is coming in 4D1. That was our normal equation. Now, don't you think that equation will actually fail? If when I look into my 2B ka ITC available and I have also removed the reverse charge, so I looked into 2B ka ITC available transactions, I only focused on that invoices and I also removed the reverse charge transaction. Whether my equation will not fail here if I also adjust that credit note. I always do invoices plus debit note minus credit note as per the 2B. And if I look into this transaction and how it is reported in my 3B, will that fail or not? So I could see Abhinav says it will fail. And that's again the right answer. It will obviously fail, right? So here again, one important point which we should look into this transition, that whenever you're looking into 2B, only refer to invoices and debit note. Credit note, we will handle it separately, right? So you always have to look into the invoices and the debit note and then see whether it's coming in the 4A5 or not. For credit note, you should always handle it separately. So this is like another important part which we should understand whenever we are looking into this equation. So hope this part is clear to everyone. Now, let me ask you another question. Are there cases of amendments? Can I actually have a B2B invoices? We know many times what happened. Let's say there was a supplier, a genuine supplier. Supplier have shown the invoice for 1 lakh rupees, right? So that person has filed for 1 lakh rupees in the month of August. So when I look into my GSTR-2B, I would be seeing this transaction as a B2B invoice in my GSTR-2B as 1 lakh rupees, right? Now what happened? When I saw my purchase register, I realized, or whenever I saw that invoice was not 1 lakh, that invoice was 1,20,000. I asked my supplier that, hey, this invoice was for 1,20,000. The tax amount was 1,20,000, not 1 lakh. And this supplier, he said, okay, I will rectify my mistake. This person has also amended his invoice. And we all know that in GST returns, while we file GST return, we can amend the document in the next return period. Let's say this person in the month of September, when he was filing, he has made one transaction called B2BA with the new values, and the value over here is 1,20,000. Now, when you look into your GSTR-2B, right? When you look into your GSTR-2B at a document level information, you would be seeing another invoice called B2BA for 1,20,000. In the month of August, there was an invoice of 1 lakh rupees, and in the month of September, you would see a B2BA document for that amount, which is 1,20,000, right? But even when you look into 2B ka summary, there is obviously government ka 2B summary. So 2B summary, when you just see this information, will be shown as 20,000. So government automatically make a 2B summary also of that ITC available section. So in 4A5, when you look into that, you will see the government will show only the differential amount in that summary, which is 20,000 as a summary, right? Whereas in the document level information, government will always show you the entire amount, which is 1,20,000, right? So now my simple question to all of you, in case of the amendments of the invoices and the debit note, when we look into the same transaction, the same equation, we said that equation is nothing but whatever the ITC I am claiming in the 4A5 is always equal to the ITC which is coming in my GSTR-2B plus the ITC which is coming in 4D1. And whenever I am saying ITC as per 2B, I am always looking into the ITC which is available ITC. I'm ignoring the not available ITC. And another ITC available part also, I'm removing the reverse charge transaction. And there also, I'm only focusing on the invoices and the debit note. Now question was, this was again an invoice. In case of the amendments, whether you're going to look into the differential value or you're going to look into the new value. Because at a document level information, you will always see a new value. But whereas when you look into the so whenever you look into the summary which has been computed by the GSTN portal, which is 2B summary, you will always see a differential value over there. So whether you're going to look into the differential value or you're going to look into the entire value. So in our example, whether you're going to look into 1,20,000 or 20,000. I could see answer from Abhinav. Abhinav says differential. Ram says differential. What about others? Ankur says 20,000. Irul says 20,000. Great. And that's again the right answer. So here you again have to remember that whenever there is an amendment, right, you should always look into the differential impact and you should not look into the entire value, right? Because that 1 lakh was in the previous month. So you would have already counted that. And in the next month, you should always look into only 20,000 and not the entire amount of 1,20,000. So this is another important point which we should always understand, that whenever we are making that equations, how exactly that is matching with your 2B and the 3B, this is something which you should always make sure. Right. So this was all about how we have to show the ITC value from your GSTR-2B. So ultimately, when we look into this, what government is trying to say? Government clearly says, if there is, okay, let me now take another simple example. Let's say there were some purchases which you have made, right? 1 lakh rupees ka purchase you have made, but supplier has not filed. Supplier has not filed his GSTR-1 and this is not even appearing in your GSTR-2B. My question to all of you, can you claim ITC in your GSTR-3B? There was a supplier from whom you have purchased something. The supplier has not filed his GST-1 and you're not able to see this particular invoice in your GST-2B, can you claim ITC or not? So I could see the answer from Shweta says no, Ankur says no, Abhinav says no, Prasindu says no, Ram says no, Shikhar says no. So everyone is saying no, and which is again the right answer. I can't claim ITC, so I'm not even going to show this invoice in my GST-3B. So you have to keep a track of this invoice to the next month till the time the supplier actually goes and uploads this invoice in their GST-1. And accordingly, you will be allowed to claim the ITC only in the month when the supplier files his GSTR-1 and show this invoice in his GSTR-1, right? So you have to keep a track of this, right? So here, this is some important changes which was there by the government portal. So which means you have to keep a track of the invoices which is there in your PR but not there in the 2B. You also have to keep a track of the invoices which is there in the 2B but not in your PR. Right? Because there you have to show this information, the 4A5 and the 4B2 also. You also have to keep a track of the documents where there is amendments and all. You have to keep a track of the documents where there is a mismatch in values. Right? There again, you have to make sure that what value is coming in the 4A5 and what value is coming in the 4B2. So even if there is a mismatch in value, let's say supplier uploaded something with 1 lakh rupees, but you know that you are allowed to claim ITC only of 80,000. There is a mismatch. So now question is, let's assume a very simple example. There was a supplier, and you only answer this particular, like you just answer about this. There was a supplier who has raised an invoice, let's say for 1 lakh rupees. When I'm saying 1 lakh, it's an ITC amount is 1 lakh rupees. You received the goods only for 80,000. 20,000 goods was defective, and you asked him to raise a credit note for 20,000, and the supplier has not even raised a credit note. My question to all of you: in 2B, you would be seeing the ITC of 1 lakh rupees. For how out of that 1 lakh, are you eligible to claim ITC for 1 lakh rupees or you are eligible to claim ITC of 80,000? So you purchased something from a supplier was compliant, there was no problem over there. But what happened, the supplier filed his GST-1 with an invoice amount, ITC amount of 1 lakh rupees. He has not even raised a credit note. So you only raised a debit note, which is a financial debit note, or he has raised a financial credit note. My question to you, are you allowed to claim ITC of 80,000 or 1 lakh rupees? And I could see answer from Ravindra says 80,000, Neerav says 80,000, Gopi says 80,000, Ami says 80,000. So everyone is saying yes, we can only claim 80,000. Now my question to all of you, that's the correct answer, that you can only claim 80,000. How are you going to report this transaction in your GSTR-3B? How are you going to show this transaction in 3B? So in 2B, I could see there is a 1 lakh rupees, and in purchase, I could see 80,000 rupees. So how are you going to show this transaction in your GSTR-3B? Abhinav says 4A5, 1 lakh rupees, 4B2, 20,000 rupees. Ravi says material rejection invoice. Gopi says 4A5, 1 lakh rupees, 4B2, 20,000. Ami says. So everyone is saying 4A5 and 4B2, which is the right answer. So under 4A5, we are going to show 1 lakh rupees because ITC as per my 2B was 1 lakh rupees. So I'm going to show 1 lakh under 4A5, and the 20,000, which is differential amount, I will just show under the 4B2. So this is how we have to show this transition while we are filing GSTR-3B. So we also have to look into the transition with the mismatch in the tax amount also. So we have to very carefully look into this and see how much ITC we are showing in 4A5 or how much ITC we are showing under the reversals. Right? So this is the another important part which we should understand. So in short, like if I ask you, right, so what we are trying to do, we are just looking into our GSTR-2B. So here we are trying to reconcile. So unless we reconcile this 2B and the purchase register, we'll never be able to even file our GSTR-3B because of this new changes. So we have to reconcile our 2B and our purchase register. We have to look into the ITC eligibility reported in 2B. If something is ineligible as per 2B, just go and sit in, it will sit in 4D2. If something is eligible in 2B, then you have to first take out whatever is ineligible ITC as per rule number 42, 43, 17, 5 and all, and then report that under 4A5 and 4B1. And if there's some eligible ITC where the section 16 conditions are fulfilled, but let's say there you can claim in the same month or you can't claim in the same month. If you can claim the ITC in the same month, show under 4A5. And if you can claim only in the next month, show under the 4A5. And at the same time, show under the temporary reversal, which is 4B2. And in the next month, you have to 4A show the, like whenever you actually receive the goods and all, you show under 4A5 and also show that ITC under 45. So this is how this entire ITC has to be reported. Now I could see there's another question from Deepa, and she's asking, can we please explain about the credit note we are to show in 3B? So now let's go with the credit note, right? Because that is also a very important part. We said about the invoices and the debit note. See, whenever it comes to the credit note, the government, when they auto-populate it, they directly show under the 4B2, right? For credit note, you should understand this in very detail, because now I will again give you few example and then you only have to answer me. And accordingly, I will tell you like what exactly we have to do. Think about a normal transition. You purchased something from your supplier amounting to 1 lakh rupees, right? And you have not received the goods, right? The supplier also realized that there was some mistake in that invoice, and the supplier also raised a credit note of 20,000, right? You are able to see both this invoice as well as a credit note in your GSTR-2B, right? So that particular supplier was a compliant supplier. He filed invoice for 1 lakh rupees and he filed credit note of 20,000 in their GSTR-1, which means ultimately it was coming in my 2B. Now you have to file your GSTR-3B, but you don't have you don't have the purchase invoice, you don't even have the credit note, you have not even received any goods and all. My question to all of you, if I talk about the invoice, right, what I said, that for that invoice, if it is not coming in your books of account, you show that information under 4A5 and do a temporary reversal and show under 4B2. That is what I said. So when you file your GSTR-2, when you're filing a GSTR-3B under 4A5, you're going to show 1 lakh, and at the same time, you are going to show 1 lakh under 4B2. So under 4C, you have not claimed anything at all. Now there's also this credit note. My question to all of you is whether you're going to show or report this credit note under 4B2 or not. Abhinav says 4A5 show 1 lakh rupees, 4B2 show 1 lakh rupees and ignore the credit note. What about others? Are you going to show this credit note or not? So now if you ask me, right, Ankur says no, we don't have to show, and which is again the right answer. So here we don't have to show this credit note even when this is auto-populated by the GSTN. You have to remember that when you have not claimed anything, right, in the invoice itself, you have claimed and you have reversed it, then if you show the credit note again at the 4B2, then you are reversing more ITC, which could be a problem. So you have to remember in this case that you should not reverse the credit note in such cases. Right? So though whenever something was coming in 2B, we were always showing under 4A5 and the 4B2, but when it comes to credit note, even if it is coming in your 2B, you should not show that information in your GSTR-3B. So this is another important point which we should understand. Now I will give you another simple example. Let's assume because this is an important part. See, we said that you cannot claim ITC, but another question to all of you. There was an invoice which was raised by the supplier for 1 lakh rupees, right? Assuming that you had the supplier was compliant, this person has also filed his GSTR-1, and also this invoice was coming in your GSTR-2B, and in that month you have also claimed the ITC against this invoice. So 1 lakh was an ITC, you have claimed already that ITC under 4A5. Now you realized that there is some problem and I want to return some goods to that particular supplier. You had already claimed ITC because you received everything. So you have also claimed the ITC. But then at a later stage, you realized that there was some goods which has to be returned to this particular supplier. Now my question again to you, and there has to be a credit note which has to be issued. I was not allowed to claim that ITC. So supplier, let's say he has not issued a credit note and it is not even coming in your GSTR-2B, but you know you have to reverse that ITC. So now my question to all of you, and you raised a self, or maybe you have just raised a financial credit note, you have recorded some entry where you have to reverse that ITC. My question is whether that reversal you have to do of 20,000, will you do that in 4B2 or not? This information is not reflecting in 2B, but whether you will do this reversal or not, which as per you should be done because you have claimed extra. I could say answer from Ankur. Ankur says yes. Gopi says yes. Shweta says yes, Nirav says yes, Irul says yes. So everyone is saying yes. So in this case, even if it is not appearing in 2B, you have to do that ITC reversal under 4B2. So this is another important part which we should understand. The credit note, if it's appearing in 2B, but if you don't have to take any impact, ignore it. But if the credit note, even if it's not appearing in 2B, but you know that you have to reverse certain ITC, you should always reverse it, right? So this is something which we should always understand, that while we are declaring the information in our GSTR-3B, how are we treating certain transaction. So this is all about, I would say, how we have to look into the transaction while we are even filing our GSTR-3B basis 2B. So one important part is, now it is mandatory for us to reconcile your GSTR-2B with the purchase register, because unless you reconcile that, you will never be able to file your GSTR-3B. So here, a good update about this is that ClearTax has also come up with auto-populating of your GSTR-3B basis this reconciliation you have done between 2B and the PR and the actions which you take, right? So wherever there's a matching or the mismatch or pending and all that, we automatically put the difference value in your GSTR-3B. So your GSTR-3B can be auto-computed basis the reconciliation between the 2B and the PR. So that feature is already available. So you can try it out. And still, if you want to get a demo of that, how exactly we are doing, and even we keep a track of the pending documents. So when I'm saying when we are keeping a track of the pending documents, so there can always be a cases, right, that I said that there was a ITC which was there is 2B, you showed in 4A5 and the 4B2, but you also have to keep a track of this in the next month whenever you get a purchase register. So we even keep a track of that. In the same way, when we have to see a PR, right, you had some PR but you don't have 2B, so we'll keep a track of that PR in the subsequent month till the time you actually claim that ITC. So that tracking part will also be there. At the same time, whatever the ITC is coming, because here in 3B we only show a single figure, right? In 4A5 I will only show a single figure, but what is the document details against that? What are the document level information against that? So that report can also be downloaded, so that even tomorrow the department comes with a notice, you should be in a position to reply them that, hey, this is that amount which has been shown here, and this is the corresponding documents against the same. So you can always look into that. I could see there's another question from Abhinav. Abhinav says, is 4A5, 4B2 grossing up reversal applicable for debit note and debit note amendments? Yes, Abhinav. Whenever we talk about 4A5 and the 4B2, this is also applicable for the debit note. So we have to always do that. Another question from Ankur. Ankur says, what about the IGST on goods imported but received next month? Ankur, see, whenever it, so for that import of goods and all, we don't have to do all this thing. So this is only in respect of the supply from the registered dealer. When it comes to the import of goods, it remains the same as we used to do before this new changes also. So import of goods, you directly show the ITC in the next month. Whenever you receive it, you just directly show that in the next month. Another question is from Sudeep, who is asking, is B2B amendment in GST rectifying GST reflected in 2B? Yes, Sudeep. Whenever there is a B2B document where the GST has been amended, right? So here when you see, let's say first I have mentioned GST1. So there was a supplier who mentioned the customer GST as GST1. So that GST1, so the recipient whose GST number was GST1 will be able to see a B2B document. And then when this person has amended this, right, and that person has changed from GST1 to GST2, then this GST2, the person who is a GST2 will be able to see this invoice as a B2BA document in their GSTR-2B. So this is how this information is reflected in our GSTR-2B. Another question from Vishwajit, who is asking, for GSTR 1 October 2022, 3B is filed on 20th of November. Can it be taken on the provisional basis for October 3B? Okay, so Vishwaji, if you ask me, right, so that has to be, so if it is not filed on time, right, it is not reflecting in 2B, you will not be able to claim the ITC. So this is the harsh provision which is there, where you will never be able to claim. And I'm assuming this, you are referring to FY 21-22 ka credit. So if you're referring to 22-23 return period, there is no problem, you can always claim it. But if you're referring to FY 21-22, you will never be able to claim the ITC after that. Another question from Ankur, who is asking, IGST of import is not appearing in 2B. So Ankur, when it comes to the import of goods, it is not dependent on whether it's reflecting in 2B or not. You can always go ahead and claim the ITC, but it is always suggested, because the government have already come up with a functionality where if some information is not coming under import of goods, right, still you can refetch that information from the ICE gate. So that functionality is already there. So I would just suggest to make a use of that functionality and accordingly claim the ITC in your GST 3B. Another question from Shekhar, who is asking, in case of ineligible ITC, we have to show under 4A5 and reduce under 4B2 or 4B1. So Shekhar, it depends on whether it's a permanent reversal or temporary reversal. If it's a permanent reversal, where you know that you don't have to reclaim that ITC in the future month, you show under the 4B1. But wherever you see it's a temporary reversal, where you can reclaim in the future months, then that show that particular ITC under the 4B2. Alright, so I think we have answered most of the queries. Still, if I was not able to answer your queries, you can always feel free to drop me a mail at surbhi@cleartext.in. So that's my mail ID. So it's surbhi@cleartext.in. And also there's some case study which we have created for all of you, just for the reference, so that you can, if whenever you're stuck, you don't understand it, what exactly to be done in this certain transaction. So you can even refer to certain case studies. So this is related to transition impact, the inward supplies, the RCM, everything. So you can always refer to this. So we will also mail you this PPT for your reference purpose. And in case you don't receive it, you can always mail me at surbhi@cleartext.in, or you can mail us at gstsupport@cleartext.in. So that's our mail ID. So you can always mail us over there. And in case you need a demo, you can still reach out to us so that we can even give you a demo of how we populate the GSTR-3B form basis your 2B versus PR reconciliation. So with this, thank you very much for joining the session. And also, there is a feedback form which has been circulated, which you would be seeing in your screen. I would just suggest if you can just also fill that, so that we can always take the session on the topic which you want, and also you can give a feedback on how was the session, and also about the topics in which you are interested. Thank you very much.